That was wonderful. Thank you. We have a great choir, don't we? We do. So thankful. Good morning. So if you don't know, this is my friend Parker Farrell. Parker is our modern worship leader. And I asked him to sit up here on the stage with me so that he could help me out in a minute with something. You'll learn more. Just be surprised. Our reading today is Psalm 34. Are you ready for a good word? Some of you are. Are you ready for a good word? Okay, good. I said that in the early service, and the boy said, no. I said, there's always one, right? There's always one. Psalm 34. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. Look to him and be radiant. Your faces shall never be ashamed. This poor soul cried and was heard by the Lord and was saved from every trouble. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Happy are those who take refuge in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you holy ones, for those who fear him have no want. The young lions suffer want and hunger, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Verse 18, the gospel. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. May God bless us today with this sacred reading. God's people did say. I know you're familiar with C.S. Lewis, and he's one of my favorite authors. Mere Christianity is a book I read over and over again. He wrote another book called The Great Divorce. And in it, he is talking about, hell. And he says that hell begins with a grumbling mood. To go to hell is to begin with a grumbling, complaining, bitter mood. Now, I know one in the room has ever complained about anything, right? We all struggle with this world we live in, a world of grievance and complaint. Maybe you heard the story of the man who decided he wanted to be a monk. He wanted to go to a monastery, and he approached the head abbot and said, I want to join the monastery. I want to be a monk. And the abbot said, well, there's one big rule. It's a vow of silence. You can only say 2 words every 3 years. Imagine that. 3 years pass, the abbot goes to the monk and says, well, what are your 2 words after 3 years of silence? Bed hard. 3 more years pass, 3 more years go by, and 3 more years of silence. The abbot says, what are your next 2 words? Food cold. 3 years more pass, the abbot goes up to the monk and says, you've been here now 9 years. What do you have to say for yourself? What are your 2 words? And he said, I quit. And the abbot said, well, I'm not surprised. All you've done is complain since the day you got here. You know, it's not hard, is it, to find something to complain about? You know, I wake up every morning and think, I'm not going to complain about anything. And then 5 minutes later, I'm already complaining. But the reality is it's really easy to find something to complain about, even with all the advantages that we have over most people in the world. You know, there are a lot of people in the world that love to have your problems to complain over. But in spite of all the blessings and the advantages that we have as relatively wealthy people, we do complain and grumble a lot. And you know what that makes us? Well, it makes us human. But I've learned one thing I've learned in life. This is just true. You can write it down, tell your neighbor, tell your friends, call your kids, and tell them that David said this today. You're not going to complain your way to a better life. I'm not going to complain my way to a better mood. I'm not going to complain my way to being a better husband or to a better marriage or to a better friend. I'm not going to complain my way, to a better family, to a better church. I'm not going to complain my way to a better country. There is a better way, though. The better way is gratitude. Gratitude and thanksgiving, when it's a part of the fabric of our life, when it's a refrain that's repeated over and over again in our life, well, life is better. Everything is better in life. Now, the Psalms are an interesting book. There's 150 Psalms, and they're a prayer book that have been prayer books for spiritual pilgrims for thousands of years. Jesus probably learned how to pray through the Psalms. And what the Psalms help us learn how to talk about God about things that are hard. What I appreciate about the Psalms is their honesty and the raw emotion in them. Oh yeah, you'll find complaint in the Psalms. You'll find lament in the Psalms. The Psalms are raw, honest, that have every possible human emotion that you've ever experienced. They describe the human experience of sorrow, loss, sadness, joy, celebration, life, death, all of it. Some of the Psalms have just a single idea like salvation or forgiveness or the plea for protection, all kinds of things. They're just very honest. But there is one thing about them that I have found to be true. If you read through the Psalms from beginning to end, by the way, the Psalms are like reading a person's diary. You're reading their innermost thoughts, and that's what makes it sacred and holy and helpful. They're the words of people addressed to God, not the words of God to us, but the words of people expressed to God. And this is expressed in the middle of all this humanity is this one refrain that comes up again and again. Give thanks. Now, you know what a refrain is? A refrain is a part of music or a part of a poem where it comes back to the point again and again. Let me give you an example. Parker's going to help me here. I bet almost immediately when Parker starts to play, oh, you know the refrain, don't you? And James Taylor wrote this in 1968. He was going through a very dark period in his life. A friend had died by suicide. He was in the grips of an addiction. And he was hospitalized for a while. And it was during that period that he wrote this phrase, this refrain, fire and rain. I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Won't you look down upon me, Jesus? You gotta help me make a stand. You just gotta see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand. I won't make it any other way.
Okay, let's sing it together.
Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again.
Now, the beautiful thing about the Psalms is that there's a refrain. In the refrain, James Taylor is talking about fire and rain and dark times, and there's no redemption necessarily in the song. is just this expression of human want. And the reason we connect to the song so personally is because we all know fire and rain. The Psalms talk about the fire and the rain, but there's a refrain that comes up again and again and again in the Psalms. The main thing it comes back to again and again, it is to give thanks. In the fire and the rain, give thanks. In the fire and the rain, be thankful. Psalm 7 says, I will give to the Lord the thanks due his righteousness, and I will sing to praise to the name of the Lord Most High. Psalm 9, I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of your wonderful deeds. Psalm 28, the Lord is my strength and my shield. In him my heart trusts, and I am helped. My heart exalts, and with my song I give thanks to him. Psalm 69, I will praise the name of God with a song. I will magnify him with thanksgiving. Psalm 95, let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him with a song of praise. Psalm 107, oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. You see, woven all the way through the Psalms is this fire and rain, the human experience, but the refrain is give thanks. Give thanks in the fire and rain. Psalm 34 is a great example, and there's a background to the psalm. You remember the story of David. David walked down into the valley of Elah with a stone and a sling, and he stood toe-to-toe with the giant. He took the giant down with a single toss of a stone to the giant's forehead and took him down. Giant laying on the ground, David took out the massive sword from the giant and took off his head. And in a moment, David moved from being a shepherd to the hero of God's people. And everyone praised and loved David. Well, everyone except for King Saul. King Saul became jealous and envious of David's fame and rise to success and his talent and his gifts. When they were returning home from the battlefield against the giant and against the Philistines, women came out in the streets with their lutes and their tambourines and began to sing. Saul has killed and slayed his thousands, but David has killed tens of thousands. And as the time went by, Saul became more embittered, more envious, more jealous, and more unstable, and put a contract out on David's head. And suddenly David went from being the hero to being the goat, and he had to run for his life. And David spent decades living in the wilderness, in the suffering. And at one point, David became so desperate that he went to the town of Gath, hoping that he could hide among the enemy. But when the people of Gath found out who he was, they put a contract on his head, because Gath was the hometown of who? Goliath. And the only way David could possibly escape was to pretend that he was mad and lost his mind. He drooled all over himself and spoke gibberish. And the king let David go. And if you read the subscript below Psalm 34, it says that David wrote the psalm when he was feigning madness to escape the king of Gath. And so what's remarkable then is when you read this, you know the background, you know what he's going through, and then you hear David say, I will bless the Lord at all times. How remarkable that he would say that. The Lord's goodness will be forever on my lips. I will praise the Lord continually. And you think, has David lost the grasp on reality? But what he means is he's really talking about all times. To give thanks in the fire and the rain, it means to give thanks when we're walking through dark valleys, to find reasons to be thankful when we're going through a hard time, to find reason to give thanks when we're on the top of the mountain, we're in the darkest of the valley, when we reach our wits' end and we don't know what to do, to give thanks. And then David gives testimony. After been through this experience and living in this wilderness for 10 years or more, running for his life, he says, I sought the Lord, and he heard me. To this poor soul, the Lord listened to me and took away my fears. Didn't take away my circumstances, but took away my fear. Because the Lord is near the brokenhearted and close to those who are crushed in spirit. Now, if you're like me, you might say something like, well, David, not this, this is David. David, you don't live in the world I live in. You don't know my family. You don't know what we're going through. Did you know that I'm caring for a son who's not doing well, and I'm also caring for my mom? I'm sandwiched between generations of trouble, and so how can I just sing God's praise? I'm all alone. It's the Thanksgiving season, Christmas season, and it's hard for me because I just feel sad because I'm alone. David, don't you know that my husband died and I'm just walking around in the house by myself and had these long, quiet hours? You don't know where I work. I get up every day and my boss is just hell to live with. And I'm just miserable. If you had to deal with my boss every day, I wake up, I go to the office. David, if you only knew my life, it's not real. But I want to point out to you that David was not some Pollyanna mystic just living with his head in the clouds. That when you read the Psalms, you hear the pathos and the pain and the suffering. But David discovered something. David discovered the reality that if we look for reasons to be thankful, we'll find more reasons to be thankful. But if we look for reasons to grumble and to complain, we'll find even more reasons to grumble and to complain. You know, right now, I'm going to be blunt. We live in a world where people have just gone stupid crazy. I mean, just crazy. Crazy. A world of bitterness, adults using their power to air grievance and complaint, and it does nothing for us but make us broken and weary and tired. But Thanksgiving, to be thankful, it's easy to focus on that, but to be thankful enlarges our heart. To be thankful helps us see that we live in a world of abundance. David is not naive. He's a realist. And I've discovered this to be true. I've walked with people through all kinds of pain and suffering. I have witnessed unimaginable suffering. I've had a front row seat to pain in dark valleys. But this is what I've discovered to be true. No research here, no lab of scientists in white coats will prove this. Anecdotal from my experience. But the people who I know who have walked through depression and darkness and fire and rain, who have been grateful people, have fared better than those who were not. Because what we focus our mind and heart on is who we become. And the only way to keep fire and rain from making your heart hard is to live with a spirit of abundance and believing that God's power and goodness is around us all the time. I went to see an oncologist for 5 years after I went through my lymphoma and chemotherapy 12 years ago. I saw my oncologist every 6 months. And one time he said to me, David, it's true, a positive attitude makes the chemo work better. He said, I can't explain it, but people with a positive attitude, when they're fighting cancer, they've got the inner resources they need to fight the cancer. And those who don't have that thankful spirit and don't look for reasons to be thankful, they die sometimes sooner than those with that spirit of gratitude. I know this, that when you're fighting cancer, when you're struggling with depression, when you're struggling with hardship and loneliness and defeat, it's real, it's so real. But people who find a way to look in the middle of it to find some light, some beauty, some goodness, get a spirit that makes us fighters, that gives us energy and the emotion and the resources to get up and go on, and it builds resilience. Let me ask you a question. If you were to look back over your whole last week, and you were to write down everything that you said, everything that you thought, and you were to read back over it, what would the refrain be? What would the refrain be? Would we find Thanksgiving? I don't say that to make you feel bad. I just say that because we need to pay attention to it. Because like David said in another Psalm, Psalm 23, David said we should focus on God's presence and not the presence of our enemies. Oh, it says in Psalm 23, doesn't it say this? That God prepared a table for David in the presence of his enemies? And is it not true for us? In the presence of all the things that are obstacles and hardship and difficulty and hardship, we have a God who sets a table before us every day, a table of goodness in the presence of our enemies. And when we place our focus on God, the God who is and the God who loves us, our cup overflows. We have so much to be thankful for. And I'm thankful for you. Isn't it good just to have friends? To have people that love you and care about you? To have good friends? To know that winter, spring, summer, fall, all I gotta do is call. Did you know that Carly Simon wrote that song? She heard James Taylor's version, I've seen lonely days I couldn't find a friend. And she wrote the song, You've Got a Friend.
When you're down and troubled and you need some loving care, oh, and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. Just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you gotta do is call. I'll be there, yeah. You got a friend. You got a friend.
So before we get to the green jello,